Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, whether you're virtual, live, or listening to the replay on the podcast. I'm glad you're here. It feels like it's been a while, but I haven't been going anywhere, and I've been around online. I've been seeing things posted. If you're watching this right now, it's April 2023, and we've got an exciting time. We've got the upcoming president, Mayorkas, is going to shake things up. But talking about the state of where things are today, it's quite interesting. Our practice is getting more progressive, more inclusive within the industry? Or are we kind of going back to our old ways? Are we kind of abolishing the things that we've learned from the pandemic? Or as an industry, are we getting more and more responsible, more and more inclusive? And on that point, I want to talk about inclusivity in architecture, but also I think it's a really important time to celebrate people of color in architecture. And on that note, I am joined here with an awesome guest who set up an awesome organization, a blog. It's a really cool thing, which does a lot more than that, events and all this stuff. And they will explain it in much better detail than I did. But I've got the fantastic Savannah Williams from POC in architecture. How are you?
Hello. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, it's good that you're here. Now, Savannah, I know you from online, but maybe before we talk about what POC is and the kind of the wider topic, do you want to just tell us briefly about who you are, first of all?
Who I am. Okay. Well, currently I am an architect and I'm working in London. And I studied my part one in the University of Liverpool. So I had an experience of living up north. It was the first time living away from home, out of London. So it was a good experience.
Yeah.
But it was a lot less diverse than London, I'd say. But it was
Mm,
a good, all experience all the same. And then I worked for a year in practice in London in a small residential company, which was really nice. Got to learn from people because it was much smaller. And then I
yeah.
took my part two in Westminster University, which was it was nice to be back at home and be around my London friends, and then also make new friends in London. That was nice. And then I got a job in London at Foster and Partners, where I still am, and I completed my part three at the end of last year, which was great. So I finished
Ooh,
education.
well done. You did it.
Yeah,
The hard slog, part
yeah, the
three.
long
Well,
7 year slog.
well, even the AARB are thinking of shaking that up right now, isn't it? So
This is true,
but you've got it. You've done the
but
main
I've got
thing.
it.
You,
Yeah,
you're
even though it was long, I actually feel like it does it makes you feel like you've completed something. I feel like part one and part two is really exciting and it's enjoyable, and you learn yourself as a designer. And then part three gives you that extra layer of professionalism and the UK regulations. I know it sounds really boring, but actually, once you complete it, you actually feel really proud of it. So
yeah.
I think it's still valuable. And then aside that, I set up a blog, as you said, POC in architecture during my part two actually, and then recently at the beginning of this year, I registered it as a community interest company. So pretty cool.
Amazing. Well, I'll give you another round of applause, partly for the part three. But all
Thank
these
you.
good things start as a blog, start as an initial
Mm,
idea. And so POC in architecture, first of all, can you tell us what POC stands for and where
mhm.
that came from? What is a POC about?
Yeah.
And maybe just, unpeel a little bit of what it's up to at the moment, and
Hmm.
we can open the convo from there, really.
Yeah. So the idea sprung to me actually after the George Floyd murder, which was obviously in America,
Yeah.
and it was during the pandemic. I was in the middle of doing the part two, and I just felt a bit like helpless to the situation. Like I can't really do anything about this. It's a problem that we've obviously had for centuries. You know, racial issues and polarization and all these things. And then I reflected on my own journey as a minority and architecture, and thought, how can I fuse these two things together? And I also started looking at like reports and statistics, and the ARB had done a report on how many Black architects we have, and it was something like 1%. And
Yeah.
then I was looking at the RIBA education statistics, and Black students were the lowest number and also ended up being the lowest who would complete or pass. So I thought, why is this? What's going on? So I started this blog, which was basically initially to start representation within architecture. So the first aim was to post part two's final projects, because I also felt that on other mainstream architectural online magazines, there wasn't much representation basically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the initial starting point, was the blog, and to give representation and also do interviews with people of color in architecture as well. That's kind
Yeah.
of where it started. Yeah, a place
Very
for
interesting.
representation.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I think it's important, and I think that, I've been learning as well. We're all as we go, whether employers are working in the industry, but I think half of it is also challenging what is currently accepted and what can be improved. So, for
Mm,
example, um, I think that when I came into architecture, I mean, long hours is kind of seen as a thing that's been accepted in, well, that's the old ways in terms of
yeah.
architecture. And there's a lot of talk about that as well as remuneration. But, equally, I think giving opportunities to people
Mm,
from backgrounds which are minorities, it can be due to financial reasons or
mm,
certain situations, it is still a big problem in architecture. and
yeah.
i f- and I think that the part we touched upon it, the part one, the part two, the part three route hasn't
Mm,
been accessible from people from different backgrounds
yeah.
within the UK. Have you seen, since you set up POC, you mentioned it was started as a blog, even in the last 3 years. Tell us a bit
Mm,
about your journey on that and what you've perhaps learned and been involved with, and maybe, some things that can be celebrated as well. I'd love to
mm.
hear it.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest um, things that I've really enjoyed from doing this was, after doing the blog,
Yeah.
um, then came about the idea of doing a mentorship program.
Okay.
So getting primarily part one students who are in their final year, to basically bridge the gap between education and practice. Because if you don't see yourself in practice, it can be quite hard to feel like it's attainable to you, or to feel like, oh, when I leave university, am I going to go into a practice and feel like I don't belong here? This type of feeling.
Yeah.
Um, so doing the mentoring program gives representation, but then also it allows students to have conversations with architects who either look like them or don't look like them. So it's about diversity and inclusion at the same time, and
Yeah.
integrating different people. And also having the collaborative um, kind of relationship between education and practice. And
Yeah.
that's basically why I set it up, really. And to give real life experiences. I even feel like, for me, I didn't set this up so that I could personally gain from it, but I actually
Yeah.
feel like having conversations with different people has been as rewarding. Like, it's been really rewarding for me, really. So
Yeah, well, and well said. I've just put up a link on the bottom. And for our audio listeners, actually, I should say that you can see all this at www.pocinarchitecture.com. And you talked about mentoring, Savannah, and I agree.
mm,
It's a two-way conversation, isn't it? Initially, I think people who are experienced, maybe they don't have much time, and they think, oh, I don't really have time to mentor someone. But
mm,
actually, you learn a lot when you do mentor someone, and actually the mentee often gives you
yeah,
really valuable insight. And I think that it's very encouraging to when practices are starting to bring that
engage
into.
and
Exactly. And actually, one quick example is Accra Lowry work a lot with the local schools to kind of do work experience, which isn't
mm,
necessarily credential like university course, but it actually gives these people like a bit of an insight into what it's like to
yeah,
work within an architecture practice. So I really applaud you on that. What I was going to say to you as well. So, I mean, while talking about inclusivity,
mm,
um, my particular background, I mean, I came into architecture many years ago, and as a gay man myself, I didn't really feel like the industry was that progressive at all.
mm,
I didn't really want to talk about my situation, But in terms of people of color and stuff like that, and you
Hmm.
talked about representation. I mean,
Yeah.
what are the kind of stories, Savannah, that you've heard before
Mm.
from people that you spoke to? Is it generally that they felt, for example, uh, a case of that they're in the in the minority then, or is it getting better at the moment? I'd just love to hear a bit of insight on that from your perspective.
Yeah, I think sometimes, I mean, for myself and also from peers as well,
Yeah,
who are of color, it's that kind of, you can kind of get that imposter syndrome sometimes, which is maybe you're not people are not looking at you as if you're out of place, but it can feel like that sometimes. It's kind of hard to describe. I mean, and then if you have
yeah,
no one to talk to about this that's like you kind of have it just in your head, and it builds up.
yeah,
And you get self-conscious when actually maybe you don't need to be. But then there are
yeah,
obviously cases where there might be slight discrimination within the office, and sometimes you just don't feel comfortable talking to anybody about that because you think they might brush it off, or they might not understand, and that can be quite difficult, I think, sometimes. So I think also the mentoring gives an opportunity for you to maybe speak to an architect outside of, say, education, because things can happen in university as well, and have a conversation with somebody who's in the profession and get a
yeah,
perspective on it, and also maybe teach them that, look, this is how sometimes these things that I said can make someone like me feel. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, I think
yeah.
it's, yeah, imposter syndrome, and just, yeah, I think representation is really important. Even like you're saying, as a someone like yourself and someone like me, you felt in some way that it wasn't that open as well. So it can
Yeah,
happen to females as well. So it's the
yeah,
same thing. I think in my part one, I remember we were in a lecture, and somebody asked the question to one of the very old white men that were on the stage: "Do you think we have an issue with women and men in architecture?" And he said, "I don't see an issue here. I think
yeah, of course.
there's enough females in I don't see there's a problem."
Well, there you go. When you said earlier, I almost bit my tongue, but I think that's the old perception of architecture was that it's an
Yeah,
old man, old white man's, club where basically that was the way. And I do think it's changing, but you're right. We do
yeah, I think it
constantly
is.
have to challenge the status quo, and we're not alone actually. So what I was going to say to you is before
Mm.
we are now doing this talk. It's a bit like Blue Peter. I did do a poll on LinkedIn, and now I know everyone's got to zoom in with a microscope, but it is live. I'll put in the link now. But basically, I asked everyone, do you agree that architecture is an inclusive industry to work within? And 384 people have voted,
Mm.
and 63% of people slightly disagree or strongly disagree with the sentiment that architecture is an inclusive industry to work in. Now I'm not the best at maths, but 63% is a majority, and
Yeah,
actually the biggest part of it. So most people said that they slightly disagree, followed by people strongly disagreeing,
yeah,
and then people slightly agreed it's inclusive, and then the minority strongly agreed it's inclusive. So basically, we all kind of feel that this is not an inclusive industry, or that there's things that we can do better.
mm.
Um, but so I think there's a lot of work to do. Well, in terms of celebrating what we've done, what I would say is, by the fact that I now see the POC,
Mm.
right? The fact that we talked a bit earlier about like the 1 to 100 podcast, which I think
Yeah.
for anyone that hasn't checked them out is amazing. And it's 7 graduates, women of color, in their words,
Hmm.
and seekers of change. And it's quite cool because all the ladies and women
Yeah.
they've grown.
Yeah.
In the time I've known them, and they're going through their career, so it's very very interesting. But where I'm getting there on the good note is I do feel like we are on the cusp of
Mm.
making it more inclusive, and it's like a project where, if anything, the architecture industry, maybe it's like it's a house that
Mm.
needs a bit of renovation, but the potential is there,
The potential's there,
right?
and it's getting love each year. I feel like it's getting a bit more love. So is going in the right direction. And
It
even the mentoring thing, 50% this year of my fully qualified architects have come from people coming forward themselves, which is
oh
really
good.
nice. It's not me scouting them, it's them saying, oh, I want to help, I want to be involved in this. So that's really positive as well.
Very, very good. I was going to
Mm.
say, because I mean, if any architecture practice out there is not woken up to the benefits of inclusivity across the studio, what I was going to say to you, have you learned anything that you talked about the mentoring, but aside from the mentoring,
Mhm.
has there been anything positive that you've also seen come out of starting the POC in architecture? Is there anything that architecture practices could be doing to actively get better as well? Or maybe is there things that people can do as an employee and introduce
Mm.
into their company to have a positive effect, in your opinion,
I
Savannah?
think, yeah, I think it could be good for companies to have, you know how when you join a company you have like health and safety introduction and like
Yeah,
do's and don'ts and all of these things. I think it would be good to have a diversity and inclusion aspect to that as well, just so that people are aware of things. Because sometimes, you know, people might say things and not realize what they're saying. You know, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt sometimes. So I think if there
yeah,
was like as you have the training courses for different things in the workplace, that there is a diversity inclusion one, you know, to do with sex, gender, race, everything. I think that would be a
yeah,
really good way for practices to ensure that they're showing that they're trying to be more inclusive for when they do employ people that are minorities. I think that could be really helpful. And also collaborating with organizations like myself, or like we said, 101 podcast, Poor Collective, Black Females in Architecture, like collaborating with these organizations just makes the message even stronger, really.
yeah, very cool. And I think that's good, productive advice for architecture
Mm.
practices. So you should be listening, and if you've been writing all this stuff down. Um, now, when I talked about earlier my own experience, on one end of the scale, I was enjoying the architecture practice, but like you said, when you can't maybe talk about certain things or you don't feel like it's appropriate to mention them, I think it can be quite lonely, isn't it, in the
Mm.
industry as well? And what I was going to say is that on the POC website, which I will bring up again, and people should check it out, you do have a forum, and
I do.
the architecture social has a forum as well, and I quite love these little hubs. You've got Instagram, which is kind of, in some senses, a community. But
Hmm.
maybe what would be cool to know is, so someone's out there and they're feeling a bit lost or on their own or whatever. How can they get involved in POC? Or have you started? Is there a way that people can kind of get involved in events and stuff?
Yeah, so if you're wanting to be involved, if you become a member on POC and architecture, you will get any posts that I make on the website,
Yeah,
you'll see those opportunities. And then also they can email me directly as well. So that I would say those are the two ways. If you become a member, you stay in the loop. That's the best way. And then also there is a chat. If you're a member, you can literally start a chat and get a response that way as well.
yeah, good.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because it can be incredibly lonely out there. And I think that was one of the blessings from the pandemic, wasn't it? Is that we
Mm.
all learned that we can kind of connect online and we had these interesting things pop up. But equally now, I think that people are looking for less the online, but in
Yeah.
person. And have you done any events yet or plan to have any
Hmm.
up and coming in the diary at
Yeah,
all?
so in general, we operate online, but there is, apart from the mentoring, which you have one-on-one sessions, there's
Yeah,
event-wise, we have the POC in Architecture mentoring exhibition, which is in
yeah.
London. And last year we had it in June in the summer, and it runs for one day.
Yeah.
And this year we're going to have it in July, July the 8th. I haven't put it out there yet, but July the 8th.
Ooh.
Pencil it in the diaries. So that will be a showing of all the students who are on the mentoring, their work, and there'll be music, food, drinks, all these things. And then I am also working on another event which will be in the winter, but I won't give any spoilers just yet for that one.
Oh, you're keeping everyone keen and on their toes.
Yes.
You were born to be there. I give up my presenter role. That is how you do it. Just a little taster.
Just a
That
little
makes
bit.
complete sense. Well, while we were talking, what I was
Mhm.
thinking is that there were a few different collectives online, and I think maybe what would be cool right now is if me and you together
Mhm.
brainstorm a few ideas of things that we know. So remember Savannah, just before we went live, I was
Yes.
talking, we were talking about different ones. So some of the interesting collectors I've learned of that other people might not be aware of, that people should investigate and check
Mhm.
out and join and get involved in, is so one of them is Muslim Women in Architecture. So I met one of
Yeah.
the ladies from them, and it was on the tip of my tongue, Savannah, but you know, it's there. So that's MWIA.
Yeah.
So very, very cool there. But we also
Mhm.
talked about, before we went live, the Poor Collective
Yeah.
with the dapper Sean, you know, who set up this awesome thing as well. Now, the
Mhm.
Poor Collective, I do think is worth people checking out. And the Poor Collective, in essence, I mean, it's set up by Sean. I think he's
Mhm.
one of the co-founders.
He's one of the
But my
co-founders. Yeah.
understanding is that they speak to people from, you know, lower economic backgrounds, get them involved in
Mhm.
architecture practices. I think they work with 1 or 2 architecture practices as well. So it's along the lines of what you're doing, Savannah,
They
as
do a lot
well.
of like community work, which is really good as well. Like it's really nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Well, this is
Yeah.
it. I mean, they gotta be honest. The architecture industry is so big. There's not like there can be just one thing, right? Because we need
Yeah.
all these different awesome people like yourself doing all little bits here and there. You know?
Mhm. And branch off, and then one day everyone connects all the dots, and it's
Yeah.
great.
I think you're right. And here we go. So build away internship. And you've got
Mhm.
things. Sean, shout out to Poor Collective. I think it's awesome. I'm just going to put that up online as well. So the Poor Collective, I really think is cool. POC in architecture. Of course, I think it's really cool. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And I do think people should check it out. The 1 to 100 podcast.
Mhm.
A really good resource that I think, if no one has seen it, is Scale Blog by Sana. It's so cool. Have you
Okay,
checked
now
this
you're
out?
teaching me something now. I don't know about this
Yeah,
one.
have you checked out Scale Blog? So
No.
it's really, really cool. Sana set it up. It's got some really, really nice, awesome um tutorials, functions. She's done some amazing like workshops as well, and
Mm.
everyone can get involved. So by definition, I think it's true inclusivity,
Yeah.
and there's awesome stuff and events and really, really, really cool stuff. And Sana is very engaged online. So shout out,
Mm.
you should check it. The Scale
Yeah, I'll
Studio
check this
is
out.
the other bit I think I was thinking, and you know, she basically got loads of university students and they learned stuff together. So it was really,
Amazing.
really good. That's another one. Have I missed any, Savannah? That
Black females in architecture is another
Yeah,
one.
there you go. So have we got the website for Black females in architecture? Let's see. Come on. Here we go. Let me bring it up. Amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't joined the newsletter. I need to do it after this. There we go.
Uh-oh.
I'll just put up the link here as well. Have you been
I think the Paradigm also do a lot of things as well. I
Oh
don't know if you know
yeah.
about Paradigm. Paradigm, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
Yes,
Um,
I'm going to the first time to their talk tomorrow. So the
mm.
Paradigm. So between that, I think that's a good rundown. I'm just looking at my emails there to see if I can find it. So I'll bring up the link for that in a bit. But between that, those are the
Mm.
really cool, inclusive. I guess they started off as little projects, but they come into really awesome communities as well. The only other one as well that I think is really important is Architecture LGBT.
Mm.
Um, which I think is amazing, wasn't around years ago. And I think they do some really cool, amazing um, events all the time. I think they're always in Fosters and Partners building as well, Savannah, you know, so it's like,
Yeah,
you
we do
know,
have quite a big Pride celebration here, so which is really nice. I think last year we did some pavilions, which was lovely and colourful. So yeah, we do celebrate it, which is
yeah,
lovely.
exactly. And you guys
Yeah,
have got the model shop in Fosters to do
we
it. So
do.
you do, you do. And, you know, Foster, Norman Foster's done well. He could spend a few pounds on that beautiful float, you know?
Yes.
He can do it. He can do it. But I mean, I'm quite excited at the moment. I mean, what I was going to say to you, so with Mayaroki as well joining, I mean, the first, like, he's very young president, and as well,
Hmm.
lovely guy,
He's lovely,
you
yeah.
know, and he's a black architect himself who's actually gone on from architecture into project management as well, working in multidisciplinary. I mean, are you excited for how things are going to shape up and stuff in the next year? Maybe like a bit of a rummage or ruffle in the RIBA headquarters, you know?
I think he obviously have to answer to whatever boards and other people who are within the RIBA, but I think him personally, I think he wants to really like make a change to the RIBA and shake it up, not just for like diversity inclusion, but also
Yeah.
like you said about how architecture is with the working hours and these type of things. So I'm hoping that the things that he's rooting for, he's able to actually make these changes. So I think it's really excited that he is coming into play, and also I think he, in general, is a really nice person because even during all his campaign and everything, he was a mentor on my first year of doing the mentorship program. So
Oh,
he made time
really?
to, yeah, and he's on it again this year. So it's really nice that he's still active, you know, with smaller communities and not just the picture that everyone sees. So I think it's a really positive thing. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. I hope so too. I was saying I'm tempted to run again for the ROBA Council. It's a lot of work, but there's the associate seats, and then that's what I was going to say. Because I think, though, okay, the ROBA is an old institution, right? And
Hmm.
like you said, maybe some things are set in their ways, but what a better chance to shake up the system than this year with Oki
Yeah.
joining. And I think that as well as doing these new and awesome, amazing organizations such as POC and Architecture,
Mm,
Architecture LGBT, we've also got to look at changing the old institutions as well.
exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of both angles, isn't it? But
Hmm.
I don't know. I feel like it's getting there. And I feel
I
like,
feel like it is. Yeah.
you think so
Yeah,
too?
I feel like there's a long way to go. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's all roses and fairies, but I feel like it's not the same. Like I said when I started architecture in part one, and that lecturer said I don't see an issue with females and males in architecture. And then as I've come to complete my part three and set up this organization, I've had
Yeah.
people come to me and say, "Oh, I want to help." So I think there has been a change, but there's obviously more to do, definitely.
There is more to do. There is more to do. Well, I hear
Mm.
you as well. So, well, what I was going to say is, so I'll bring up the links and all this stuff again in a bit. However, I don't want it to be a two-way conversation. You know, I've asked you a lot of questions about POC. Okay, we've done a bit of a, you know, a mad list between us of cool things we've seen online. Me frantically looking on Chrome, but hopefully there's something out there for everyone that they can get involved with. But
Mm.
do you have any questions or things that you'd like to ask me, or you
Mm.
want or to bring up, which is important to you as well?
I mean, you have a very, you know, large platform yourself. And do you think you've seen a change in those joining your platform? I don't know if there's a way for you to really see that,
Yeah,
in terms
I
of different types of people or.
Yeah, I mean the what's interesting is how the website's changed. So I get less
Hmm.
people involved in the community forum, and that's partly due to I think the trends, partly due to maybe my effort and energy on them. But I do
Hmm.
tend to think that the YouTube, the Spotify, all these things, which I don't really call community, I think them as channels, but they're
Mm,
getting
I
more
agree.
they're getting more popular, they're getting bigger, and with that,
Yeah.
I get to see the ages and so forth of and
Mm,
what I quite like is so that the architecture social demographic is from 15 to 45 tends to be um
that's
and
quite wide. That's quite a wide range.
yeah, and it's quite close. I think it's something like now 55% men and 45% female. So I'm trying to
Oh,
swing it
nice.
that way, but I'm also maybe looking at the graphic design and stuff because it's quite like
Mm.
hardcore black, white, yellow, and all this
Yeah.
stuff. When I kind of like that, but you know. I'm
I
looking
like
to
it.
do
It's
more
loud,
interior
but yeah.
design and lighter and things. So hopefully we'll get there. But I tell you what's been good for me is that I've recently expanded my team, which does the less of the social media cool stuff, which I'm trying to do, but also the
Mm-hmm.
recruitment. But it's been really good to have like a female that
Mm.
joined me. So it's number two in the company. So it's and it offers
Yeah,
it's very
that's nice.
important because to me you can get blinkered eyes and stuff, and it's really good to have different perspectives.
Mm.
And so
I also
yeah.
saw you had a dog on there. I had a look. You
Yeah,
had
I mean
a.
the dog adds a lot in terms of how do I say? Yeah, I love dogs to bit. Probably doesn't solve my problems business wise, but it's nice to have around the office and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that things have changed so much.
Mm.
The in terms of the theme of what's going on, I really didn't feel that certain things could change within the industry.
Mm.
Slightly cynical sometimes. I like to think of myself. I mean, really, I've spoken to a lot of people, so yeah, I'm used to humans, and I'm being, I'm slightly pessimistic about things, but I always try to be optimistic. So I'm an optimistic pessimist, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're right, because
You're
I'm like,
realistic. You're a realistic,
yeah, hope
person
for the
probably.
best, but don't be surprised if something comes in. However, I think that Maya Waroki getting elected
Mm.
was amazing, and I was involved
Mm.
in that, and I wanted to get involved in it, but I genuinely didn't know that he would win, and he did, and I think that that gives hope to things
Yeah.
changing, and I love seeing stuff like POC and architecture popping up, and I
Mm.
love seeing all these things happen, and I do think that the example I like to give the architecture social is while there is a business behind it, of course, which
Mm.
pays the bills, pays for for me to live, pays for me to expand the team and do cool
Mm.
stuff. Equally, what I'd love in the architecture social is for it to be a bit of a fun palace, like Cedric Price, that idea that people can do what they want, do crazy experiments, and I
Yeah.
think that I like to see things get disrupted. So disrupting the election, I'm quite proud of, and I
I
tell
think
you
it
one.
shows the strength. Yeah, it shows the strength in your platform and your organization, definitely. The
It
fact that
doesn't
you
come from me. It comes from people like yourself getting involved, getting on here, and it is community, it's
mm,
power in
yeah,
everyone, and
it's the power of the community, yeah.
it totally is. But there's a long way to go. And I'll tell
Yeah.
you one like quick one. Someone invited me to an awards ceremony recently, which basically you got to pay to enter and all this stuff. Awards can be, and I got to be careful what I say, but I want to say a sham, so I'll say it. They're a bit of a sham sometimes, right? So I was invited to an award ceremony, and then I sent in the application after being invited into it, and it wasn't good enough, and it got
Oh,
like. And then I got redacted from the awards, which I was invited in, and I just thinking, oh my goodness, I think that the awards are a bit of a sham. So
yeah.
maybe we do an architecture social awards, which is people don't enter the go in, and it's voted by the people, and it's an
Yeah, why
award by
not?
by the people for the people.
Yes, I love that.
So you've heard it here first. I know we were celebrating people of color in architecture, but you've also learned about Steve's crusade and wars with awards. But that's the way.
And I'm in
that's
support of it. I'm here for it.
that's what we can do. But maybe we can do something clever in there. Anyways,
Mhm.
I digress. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we kind of wind down the live stream?
Um, I think you have
We've
touched everything. I would just encourage everyone to just be more inclusive in every realm. That's all I
Yes,
can say, really. I think we had a good little discussion here. I'm
brilliant.
excited for more things to come, and everybody listening. I'd say just if you can become a member of Pocket Architecture to stay up to date with our events and opportunities that are coming this year.
Ah, okay.
Mm.
I caught something then. So it's not POC, it's POC. Do you prefer POC or
So
POC?
I say Pocket Architecture, yeah, but I don't mind if people say POC, but Pocket Architecture is how I refer to it, yeah.
I got you. So POC in architecture, POC or POC, as long as you're involved, we're happy about it. Okay, great. I'm gonna bring up the website one last time before we go. David actually leaves a good little comment before we go, where David Shepard says one of the issues is the use of collective labels, POC, BAME, LGBTIQA, in order to gauge diversity. It leads to broad brush tokenism. True, David, that can happen. I think something to keep in mind while we just challenge all this stuff, isn't it? But, you know, I think as long as we're all talking about it and we're working through it together, then I think, you know, if
each of these organizations that name them in a certain way could then come together, that's a nice way to collaborate.
Yes, I agree also. David, you do have a point. I would also say, though, that even just getting a website or something is incredibly difficult online. And so, you know, sometimes you've got this weird thing. So like I was crazy when the Architecture Social was available, but Architect Social, someone is charging £1,000 for. So, you know, I'm not too precious about the label in that sense, but I know what you mean, David, as well. You know, in true inclusivity transcends labels, and I do agree. We just kind of all have to tackle it together. Thank you so much for sharing that, David. And then actually, Savannah, thank you so much for being really honest, for having a great unscripted conversation, for dealing with me as I've just come back from my little trip to Wales. I really appreciate it. And people should check out POC in architecture, people of color in architecture, POC in architecture. I'm going to bring up the website one more time, which is www.pocinarchitecture.com. Thank you so much, Savannah. I'm going to end the live stream now. Give you a clap. Just before I do that, thank you so much to you people in the audience. Yes, I'm talking to you. Thank you for listening in. You are an absolute legend, and this is what keeps the Architecture Social going. And drop me a comment or a DM to let me know if you want any particular content that I should schedule, something maybe a bit risque. I don't mind, we can do it. You know, or maybe you want to talk about something simple as well. But what I will be doing is also in the next couple of weeks, I will be doing one-to-one sessions on CVs, portfolios on LinkedIn. And if there's one thing that I do know, is it's the right amount of pages in a CV. It will go on my tombstone. That's what people ask me all the time. So I'll be doing it live. But thank you, Savannah. I really appreciate it. I'm going to end the live stream now. Take care, everyone. Stay on the stage, though. Stay on